The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience Canadian Open DraftKings picks in preview. Geoff Ulrich from Fantasy Golf Metrics and DK Live will be joining me in just a moment. However, first I do want to release my betting card because we did the Monday show and there were no odds that had come out. In fact, I didn't even see legitimate odds that I could use until waking up on Tuesday morning. So my card will go, it's a Bubba week, 22-1. Not feeling Bubba as much as I did in some of those other weeks. However, the 22 number with DJ at like 7 and Brooks at like 11, I'll take the guy who's won 3 times this year at 22-1. That's fine by me. After that, I'm going Woodland at 50, Keith Mitchell 75 with an each way, Harold Varner III 80-1 with an each way, Tom Lovelady 110-1 with an each way, and Kim 125-1 as always with an each way because I play him every single week. I'm a sucker for Mr. Woo. Eventually he's gonna hit. It might come like 2 years from now, but we'll get all our money back. I was going to say I guarantee it, but I don't guarantee it. Anyway, you can check out my cheat sheet on facebook.com/thepme on Wednesday for the full betting card, but that's my early lean. I'm also looking into Sergio on Spawn. I just think that those odds are kind of wonky, so I'm going to dig in a little bit more, and maybe after I talk to Geoff, I can get some clarity on these sorts of things. Giveaways for this show. Always, if you leave an iTunes review, include your DK handle, say something nice about the show, boom, you're in the draw in the YouTube comment section. Give the episode a like, leave your DraftKings handle, and tell me your favorite sleeper below $7,500 this week. And it can't be Cameron Champ. That's the one thing on this. It cannot be Cameron Champ. Also, no shows next week for golf. No Monday, no Tuesday. I'll have something coming out. It's just I'm away on vacation, so be aware of that. And the live chat, I'm still up on the air for tomorrow. I'll tweet it out if we're going to do it at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be with Reed Fowler. Whether we have access to a camera, that's to be seen. Anyway, Geoff Ulrich, what's going on, dude?
Not too much. Just, ready for Cameron Champ week.
Let's talk about that just right off the hop. So Cameron Champ gets a sponsor's invite because the pricing got delayed so much that all of these like sponsors exemptions are all in the field this time around. So at the web.com event, which the odds were posted like 3 weeks ago for apparently, it was the only thing that I saw when I was looking for odds. Cameron Champ was the favorite on the web.com tour. He's now in this event. And he comes in at 50-1. He's $7K on DraftKings. And people are just going to look at DraftKings price next to odds, and they're going to see Cameron Champ and be like, this guy's the lock of the century. Now, does DraftKings have it right, or do the books have it right? Because I think the books may have it wrong on this one.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to see 50-1. Like, I was thinking, 66-1, maybe 8. I'd probably see some books with 80, but people opening up at 50, it's a little insane. Now, that being said, guy hits it further than anyone on tour. I mean, legitimately, he hits it further than anyone on tour. So the talent's there. He's been absolutely ripping up the web.com tour. It's always interesting when guys take a step up, though. So I'm not going to bet him at 50-1. I am going to play him on DraftKings. We'll see how many people actually get on him later in the week. We're obviously already talking about him, but I still don't know how chalky a guy who hasn't played on the PGA, well, he has played one event, missed the cut at the Shell, but who hasn't really played this year on the PGA is going to be. So
it's a tough discussion. Like, is there a point in terms of ownership? Because, I mean, we were just coming off a British Open week where the chalk won again. It's 2 consecutive majors. Yeah. The chalk has come through. And I can see this just being a super chalky week in general because people are looking at bombers. They know the course is going to be wet. And where the DraftKings pricing came out before the odds came out, they were left to make the pricing themselves and not have any book to go off of. And there seems to be some wildly mispriced people this week.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few names. I mean, I don't know who's sticking out for you. I mean, Benny Ann at 7,800 stuck out for me. There's a couple other players in the sevens that just don't really look right. So, yeah, it's one of those weeks where, you're probably going to get a little bit of condensed ownership if you take some chances in GPPs, especially up top with, some players, maybe even just like a guy like Tommy Fleetwood, who I'm not sure is going to be heavily owned, but We'll get to that, I guess. There's going to be some opportunity if you want to take chances in GPPs, but I don't know how much chances you actually want to take given the style of this course and just the history that Bombers have put up with the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, the Bombers go nuts here. Guys can go super low. Par 5 scoring, obviously, one of the biggest factors. All 4 holes you can make eagle on if you got enough distance and can make a putt. So sorry, Robert Garrigus, that the putting part actually has to come into play because you're going to be there in 2 every single time. And I'm going to take him, and it's like not going to matter because he's going to be like plus 50. And every time I don't take him, he's like minus 14. But so with so many values, and we look at the guys at the very top of the board, you got Dustin, Brooks, Tommy Fleetwood, Sergio Garcia, Tony Finau, Bubba Watson are all, amongst the top guys. Do you think this leads itself to a stars and scrubs approach this week? Because I think that everyone's going to do that.
Yeah, and not only do you have these players up top who obviously look really good, they bring in good course history, some of them coming off good Open championships, but you also have value in the 7K range with players who are really coming into form, or you got young players like Cameron Champ who people are going to get excited about. So I think it's a great week to you can easily roster Dustin, for example, and probably one other player in the 9K range, and even under. You can even go under, in my opinion, some players very viable in the 6K range who are coming on. It's that time in the season where some of these players have to come on because they know either they get a couple good results and they keep their tour card or they don't. So you always see this late push by some of these scrubbier players, so to speak, because it's do or die for them, Tom.
Okay. Top of the board, the 3 guys above $10,000 coming in. The overwhelming favorite, Dustin Johnson. He's up there. We also have Brooks Koepka, and then we have Tommy Fleetwood as well. 11-7, 10-8, and 10-5. Dustin is uber expensive. Never won here, but has a great course track record at Glen Abbey. Of the 3 guys at the top, is it a build around Dustin? Do you think that people are going to harbor any resentment for him last week? Because he was my guy, and he absolutely blew up. That means he's been over here, which is nice, I guess. I don't think that really matters. But do you think we could see quelled ownership on Dustin Johnson solely because he screwed everyone over last week?
Yeah, and the price difference is so big that I don't think that Dustin's going to go under owned. Like, don't expect 12% ownership, but he might slip under 20% in some of these GPPs. It is possible. I would advocate you should just play him. I would be shocked if he doesn't bounce back here with at least a decent week. Now, he's probably someone if you're building a cash game lineup, I think there's 2 different ways you go. You just go super balanced, start with a guy like Tony Finau, or you just start with Dustin Johnson, because there are enough plays in the 7K range, even for cash game purposes, in my opinion, you can make a lineup with him. So I do think, if you're going to go down, you'll probably get lower ownership on Brooks Koepka and Tommy Fleetwood. So maybe those 2 are better GPP plays. But like I said, you might be right. We might not see the spread between Dustin and Brooks be as big as maybe we think at the start of the week. There is some chance for some resentment, like you said.
Well, the one thing too is if you're going to build one of these stars and scrubs lineup around Dustin Johnson, you're then relying on. There are a lot of names in the 6K and low 7K area where you can really drop down to, and I think a lot of people will. But there's also some people be like, I don't know who these people are. I'm not going to take Joel Dahman and go on my way. So maybe it is going to be a bit more with the savings with Brooks, and that way you can fit in more of the studs along with it too. Like if you had to fade one of the guys above 10K, who would it be?
Probably Fleetwood. It comes down to Fleetwood or Brooks. It's nothing against Tommy Fleetwood. It's just, if you really ask me who the better player is, I'd take Brooks Koepka right now. He's played here before. I feel like he's probably due for another win before the end of the season. And again, this track has favored pure bombers a lot over the last little bit. Obviously, Koepka can get it done in any area, but I do feel like this track is somewhere where Koepka could go nuts. So I would probably be Fleetwood. It would be the fade for me.
I think I'm on the same page with you with that. I just worry that Tommy's going to have one of these rounds where you see the course, you see all the low rounds that you can have, that Tommy's going to storm the gate and shoot 57 or something stupid like that.
Yeah, it could happen. I feel like there's a better chance he just shoots even par on Thursday and then struggles to catch up. I'd worry more about Brooks shooting 59 here personally. So I mean, either one of them are talented enough to do it. But for me, it would be I'd be more worried about fading Brooks this week than Tommy, I guess.
So if we drop down to the $9,000 range, we have Sergio leading it off at $9,900. Then it's Finau, Bubba, Kuchar, Neiman, Walker, Woodland, and Poulter. Then Kisner coming at $9,000. There's going to be guys in this pocket that go wildly underowned, and I'm hoping it's Sergio. I like Bubba the best out of all these guys. I think that Bubba has a legit chance of winning again this week. But if Sergio is going to come in with little to no ownership, I know. Look, if Dustin Johnson screwed people over at the Open Championship and people are holding that against him, I don't think it will go as far, whereas Sergio has basically screwed everyone over for every tournament that they've played over the past 3 months. But I really like him as a fit at this course.
He's played well in Canada before. Like he's played skins games here and stuff like that. He legitimately, I think, likes playing in Canada. So if you want to follow that narrative, there's something there. And at the same time, it's hard for me to get back on and be like, yeah, Sergio's a good GPP play right now, because I have given him chances. He actually put up a couple decent tournaments in Europe before the Open, and he still bombed. So I don't really know what to do with him. I agree. He's going to be egregiously underowned. Maybe like 2-3% range, because even people like me are like, I'm fed up with Sergio now. So I'm probably not even going to dabble him in there. So his ownership is going to be low. He's still an elite player. It's a track he could definitely get back on pace on, or whatever you want to say. But for me, in considering the depth that we have at the top, I just don't feel like I need to necessarily go there. So from a game theory perspective, getting such low ownership, though, I do understand that.
Like, if you were to play 20 lineups and you put Sergio in 3 of them, I feel like you would be massively overweight to the field.
I'm massively overweight, I agree.
And you're getting a situation where, like, if we just look at quality of talent, we know that Sergio is amongst, like, there's a reason that he's priced at $9,900. We haven't seen it from him in quite some time. Like, I'm looking at my Fantasy National model right now. He appears nowhere past 12 rounds, past 24 rounds, past 36 rounds. But then you start looking at the past 100 rounds, or you just do the long-term form of, like, everyone's rounds put together. Sergio's right near the top. He's all-time ranked. He only trails Bubba and DJ in rankings past 200 rounds. He trails only those 2 guys as well. So we know the long-term fit is there. And the Euro stats aren't included in this, which probably would have helped a little bit because the US Open and British Open ones aren't looking so hot, obviously. But I think that the ball striking is going to be there. He has enough distance to compete. And I always like Sergio in these spots. I remember at the Byron Nelson, I want to say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, I just knew that I had to catch up in the one and done standings, and I used Sergio as my pick. And I think he ended up beating Brooks towards the end, but right. Brooks put it in the water right in front of the green on like 18, and that was the end of him, or it went to a playoff. Whatever it was, I was the only person of 300 people that had Sergio that week. I feel like he always just shows up in spots when everyone's off of him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, if he shows up this week, like I said, just from a pure, game theory perspective, it's going to be such a good situation. Now, the thing is, you have to get him to show up, and then you have to get a couple of these other bigger names probably to drop, because he's still 9,900. He's not the easiest to fit in. I guess that's the other argument against him. But looking up here, everyone else is going to garner ownership. I guess Jimmy Walker is someone you could think about the same way. But I'd have more confidence that Sergio will get back on track here than going back to Walker personally.
I don't know if I necessarily want to do like a spread shot at the top, but like Dustin and Brooks, I'm with you. I like him more than Tommy Fleetwood. I'll use Sergio. I love Bubba. I'm definitely going to have a ton of Bubba. And then it just leaves Tony Finau sitting right there at $9,800. Am I in a situation where you can't play them all? Or do you take a scattershot approach at the top, and then when you get down to the bottom in like the $6 or $7, like $7,100 range, then you can have a Finau with him. Like you can concentrate your core at the bottom and then not worry about it at the top as much, just because all these guys are so close in talent.
I think it's actually a good way to do it, because there's some really, really good plays in the 7K range, like plays I wouldn't think twice about putting in like a core lineup or a big cash game lineup if you can enter it into a lot of, a big amount of tournaments or whatever this week. So it's definitely an approach I don't mind this week. Some of these players are so close at the top that getting exposure to more of them and then just condensing your core at the bottom makes sense to me. I mean, at the start of the week, as soon as I saw his salaries, I got to get some Tony Finau in. But you think about it a little bit. I mean, he's coming off. He had a little bit of a back issue, so to speak, at the British Open that commentators, I think, had made a bit of an issue. Now, we don't know how big an issue it is, but it could affect him. He's got a cross-country journey. And it's not like, a T25 is out of the realm for him. So if he does put up T25, Sergio gets in contention. I mean, you're in a big spot if you do fade Tony Finau. Now, I'm not saying you should, because I think it's a good way to start your cash lineup, but it's definitely viable.
So what do we do with the rest of the 9K guys? Like I said, I like Bubba the best. Probably then, I like Finau and Sergio. I mean, I probably have a bit more faith in Finau at this point, but if one of them is going to be like a tenth of the ownership, I'll probably just go to Sergio. Not necessarily saying I'm going to straight out fade Tony Finau. I have to make a decision on that later. But Gary Woodland would be the next guy that I would go to. I like Gary Woodland in 92.
Yeah, we have Gary Woodland ranked pretty high. I was actually a little bit surprised. I think he's just outside of our first class, or he might be just in it. I can't remember. But it's a pretty good setup for Gary Woodland too, when you think about it. Now, Woodland tends to be right now just, like 2 or 3 good rounds and then one horrible round that just, puts him T40 for the week. But if you're going to get really low ownership, I definitely prefer him over Jimmy Walker or Ian Poulter, I think. Poulter's form looks like it might be just on the way down. He didn't really play well at the Scottish Open, then missed the cut badly last week. I trust Gary Woodland a little bit more on this course where he can reach all the par fives and with like wedges, basically. So I'm with you there. Definitely more of a GPP play. But if you're asking me who in that range, Kisner, Poulter, Walker, maybe even Neiman, I might take Woodland over. But I think the other big decision is actually for us. I mean, we have Neiman and Kuchar ranked really closely together. So Kuchar maybe not, people might shy away from him just because, the sexier names, Neiman and Bubba Watson there. And they might just, the Eagle narrative and the Bomber narrative is out there already this week. I think Matt Kuchar is actually in a really good spot. He's got a terrific course history. I like him a lot this week. I think you're going to see lower ownership than usual too on him.
Well, is that the way, if you were to take Kuchar, would you try to correlate your lineups at all and be like, hey, here's my, even if, let's say the Kuchar comes in with reasonable ownership, because I think people got kind of caught with their pants down a little bit at the British Open being like, I thought Matt Kuchar was going to be 20%. And he was like 7% because Matt Kuchar is never that low owned when it comes to millionaire makers. But there he was. Now he goes a jump up in price. You talk about the course history, but would you do like a correlation build, which would be super contrarian, of being like Kuchar, Snedeker, Kisner, like that type of player, because you just know people are off of those guys this week?
It's an interesting strategy. I mean, Snedeker is definitely the player. I mean, obviously we're not quite at the 8K range, but that is the player in the 8K range I like for GPPs. And I don't think a lot of people are going to roster him. You could also even throw Chris Kirk in with those, 3 sort of shorter hitters, whatever you want to call them. And there you go. I mean, you have 3 pretty good players with good course histories here to go with right off the bat, who will probably be a little bit lower owned than they should be, just because, like you said, the Bomber narrative is going to dominate this week with good reason. I mean, but we've seen a mix of players play well at this venue. Ches Reavie is one here. Snedeker's one here. Like these shorter hitters can play. I mean, it's just a matter of the last couple times we've been out, we've seen Bombers do really well. So I wouldn't write off anyone necessarily just because they're a length off the tee. You do have to have a good week off the tee, but it's kind of a blend of accuracy and power. So,
well, the way that I always think about it with driving distance when it comes to Glen Abbey is the degree of difficulty for the shorter hitters is just so much higher. Like they have to have a great irons week. They have to have a good putting week, where with some of these Bombers, they're going to have those things as well, but they have to do it with a lot less distance coming into the green. Like you said, like Gary Woodland can flick wedges into par 5s here. Like Matt Kuchar can't. He's going to have to strike a 6-iron to try to get it close. It's just so much easier with a gap wedge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the story almost for every course, except for a few, like Hilton Head or a couple, which really takes the driver.
But we don't normally see a par 72 that's this short.
That's true. I mean, I know, because 18 is such a good example of this course. I mean, guys hit it like 350. They almost hit it in the water off the tee, and then they have like 100 yards in. The Bombers do anyways. So it does stick out in your mind, and I agree. I mean, the Bombers here have started to figure out this venue. So I'm not saying go away from the Bombers completely. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm going to be going, Bomber centric with at least especially my core lineup, but I'm not going to shy away from players in good form, like a Chris Kirk, like a Matt Kuchar, who have good course histories here, because you still have to putt. I mean, and these green complexes are a little bit tricky. The par 3s are tricky. It's not like you can just hit it and not do well in the rest of your game. You need to be solid tee to green. I mean, the players who've won here have done, been like top 5, top 10 tee to green for the week. So like I said, it's a week you can focus a little bit more on the players who hit along, but don't write off players in good form just because they don't have, hit it 300 yards off the tee.
I do want to let everyone know about FantasyNational.com, my favorite site on the interwebs for golf research and DFS tools. So if you need to build some lineups, boom, super easy with Fantasy National. And you get this week, next week, which is the WGC. Then you get the PGA Championship. Then you get the Wyndham right after it. If you take the monthly plan right now, it's $25. It's a great way to lead right into the last major of the season. You know you're going to want to get the research, and one of the things from it right now that I'm looking at over the past 36 rounds, driving distance gained. Cameron Champ doesn't qualify because he does not have enough rounds to actually sort this out, but when I ran it for the past 12 rounds, he came in 5th in driving distance gained. But over the past 36 rounds, here are your driving distance gained leaders, a stat you can find on fantasynational.com. Tom Lovelady, Dustin Johnson, Killa Keith Mitchell, Kokrak, Bubba, Finau, Woodland, Tway, HV3, that would be Harold Varner III. Then you have Brooks Koepka, Garrigus, Ben An, Nick Watney, JB Holmes, Seamus Power, Patrick Rogers, Ryan Palmer, Bronson Burgoon, then Neiman. Could you almost just build a core of those guys this week? Because there's enough like top and bottom names on there that you could just roll that way.
Absolutely. I mean, especially at the bottom. I mean, you got Lovelady, who's like 6,800. I think he's interesting. But then, Mitchell at 74. Those players are available at all different targets. So if you want to take it to the extreme and just target players with good driving distance, I would even say you could take it a little bit further. You could look at good driving distance and then look at good players who've done well recently in like something like par 5 scoring, and try and look at it that way. I mean, I think that's a big thing. It's not just that, you want players who hit it long, but players who can actually convert their length into a birdie, right? So I think that's an approach I'm looking at this week for sure. I want those players who are coming in with decent par 5 scoring in their last little bit and good birdie or better percentage in their last few tournaments, but also with the strong off the tee play.
All right, so this is something you can do. When you build a custom model, you can put all your stats at the top and run it any way you want. So guys that currently rank inside the top 20 of driving distance gains, par 5s gained, and birdies or better gained against the field in the Canadian Open from this week, you have Tom Lovelady is one of them. Dustin Johnson is another one. Keith Mitchell is one. Bubba Watson, Tony Finau, Harold Varner III, and that's it. Those are the guys.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Let's talk about the $8,000 guys, because these guys are no fun. Actually, that's not true. There's one guy in here that I do two guys that I actually do really like, and I want to try to figure out ownership for another one. But $8,000 guys, JB at 89, Stricker, Hoffman, Chesson Hadley, Snedeker, Adam Hadwin, Wes Bryan is $8,300. I didn't even notice him. Good God. David Lingmerth, Keegan Bradley, Billy Horschel. That is the $8,000 range. What do we do here? Because I like JB and Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean, Hoffman, I think for me, I like it when Charlie Hoffman starts putting up top 20s. His stats always look a little bit wonky, and they still do, quite frankly, just because he had a poor start to the season, and he's been a little bit in and out with decent finishes and then better ones. But, 4 top 20s in a row now, played well in a couple majors, really likes this course, and he's a guy who can take advantage of the par 5s when he's in form like this. I don't have anything wrong playing Charlie Hoffman. Again, viable cash game play. And I agree. The rest of this range for me, I mean, JB Holmes is a little bit interesting. I think you'll get lower. He's almost like the Sergio of this range, I guess you could say. I think he's burned a couple people a couple times out now. But, he was also second and third like four tournaments ago. So don't forget that. But the rest of this range, I'm just not really big on. I mean, I think Snedeker is an interesting GPP play that I'd sprinkle in if I was making like 20 lineups. But other than that, like I'm not playing Wes Bryan at 83. I'm not playing Lingmerth again. I mean, I went down that road once. Keegan, no thanks.
You know what? Keegan does interest me a little bit.
But how can you play Keegan at 81 when like Ben An and
No, I agree. I think it depends on the build that you want to do, because if you want to play some of the more highly owned guys at the top, the easiest way to kind of avoid all the ownership, besides like leaving $100 on the table, which apparently no one did at the British Open, and that was the move, to use all your salary cap. But if you want to do a more balanced build, like if you want to start like Finau, Bubba, Hoffman, you can still put On and Keegan in that lineup, I think, and then have one of like the lower end guys. And like people aren't going to attack their lineups that way at all, so ownership doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, I guess Keegan from, he's also gets thrown in there with he's going to be probably lower owned than he should be, even for because he really hasn't played that poorly. I mean, he's making cuts at least, but yeah, it's just hard for me to legitimize, you going big on him, obviously with Ben On and Lovemark and guys like that cheaper. But yeah, I understand it. If he's still a bomber off the tees, obviously been one of the best players on tour off the tee this season. So there's something there. I definitely take him over Lingworth. Take him over Wes Bryant.
Yeah. I mean, Wes Bryant has to be the most egregiously priced player in this field, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I mean, I was dumb enough to take him at the John Deere. I'm not taking him here.
Hadwin. Can we get some Hadwin love? I mean, this is the Canadian Open, although Canadians tend to play really poorly here. David Hearn had a nice run and tried to chase down Jason Day one year. That didn't work out for him. But
no, I mean, you can play the Canadian bump. I mean, we do see Canadians get in contention. They never close it out, right? I mean, that Detroit kid was like in the final group, wasn't he, one year too? I don't know what happened to him. But
did you call him? Did you just call him Detroit? Is that his name?
Detroit.
I thought it was Detroit.
I don't know.
Gerard Dutoit? He sounds Francais, although like Graham Dillette shouldn't be pronounced Graham Dillette. Whatever happened to Graham Dillette? Yeah,
he's still out. I don't even know what his injury issue is. I think he just drinks beer now and like goes on social media. I don't know. I actually don't know what his injury issue is. I know he had some big thing. I guess he's taking the whole year off.
He had the perfect skill set of all the Canadians to compete here, though. Like you want to have length, you want to be a great ball striker, score on the par fives, and hopefully roll in a few putts. The rest of the guys just don't have that profile, except for Corey Connors.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I will say this: there's one interesting Adam Svensson at 6,300, a good ball striker, one on the web.com. I think he's actually a viable play at 6,300. Don't be shocked to see him pop up on the lead. I'm not saying he's going to win or something, but he might pop up in the top 10 at some point this week. He's going to be a good player. He's going to be on tour next year. So that's actually the Canadian I would target just because he's so cheap. And he might actually be a good top 20 play too. But Hadwin, I guess, he could have a run here. I'm not going to use him. I guess he made the cut last week. He's trending a little bit better late, but at 8,400, I can pass.
All right, so the $7,000 range, you keep saying Ben on. I'm with you. Like, he just seems egregiously underpriced. He should be, like, I don't know if he should be in the $9,000 area, although I think he's a better player right now than, like, Jimmy Walker is, for sure. But, he should be, like, $8,700. He's, like, $1,000 underpriced.
Yeah, it's just a price thing. I'm not even sure. Like, his recent form it's not terrible, but he's making cuts. He's kind of just going through this, like, T40, T50 every week right now. But I mean, remember, he's T2 at the Memorial, about a month and a half ago. So it's not like his recent form is terrible or anything. But I mean, he's up there in par five scoring. His strength is off the tee. He's going to be able to reach every single one of these par fives, just like a guy like Woodland or any of the other bombers. So you're just getting a discount on a really good bomber, basically, who should set up well here for some good DK scoring. You might as well take it. I guess he's not like a must play. I don't mind Lovemark at this price either. I mean, he's been really consistent this year. The upside with Benyan is definitely better, but Lovemark's been consistent. So if you want to go that way in a cash game or something, I wouldn't actually say no. But yeah, the target I like the most of this range though is actually Chris Kirk. Just coming in with really good form, 6 straight cuts in a row. He took a break and he's put up 2 solid finishes now. I feel like he's trending towards a big week, and he's been T14 and like he had another decent result here too over the last 3 times at Glen Abbey. He's one of these shorter hitters that I feel very confident in this week. Let's put it that way.
You don't worry that he's going the other way? Like, yeah, he's still making cuts, but like he was the favorite at the Barbasol when ended up coming T40.
I mean, the stats say he's not going the other way for us. I mean, he's ranked very highly in our survival guide. He's definitely in the first class. His approach game is there. He's like 3rd in par 4 scoring over the last 12 weeks. Birdie better percentage is still way up there. He just really hasn't had a good putting week yet. And if the ball striking goes away a little bit, he might suffer. But at the same time, he's due for some positive regression, I guess, as the guys like to say, in the putting area, in my opinion. So I do like him for this venue. I think it's still a place where a guy like Chris Kirk can compete.
I think you may have sold me on Kirk a little bit too. Even at the Barbasol, 7.8 strokes gained on approach. He's averaging 7.4 over his past 2 tournaments. So you're right. Yeah, maybe the ball striking is just back. We need one of those like decent putting weeks. Hell, if I was going to suggest Keegan at $8,100, why not go with Chris Kirk at a cheaper price?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my feeling. I feel like him and Ben An are both actually pretty egregiously priced, because Chris Kirk has been way better than some of these guys at 8K we just went on. I mean, Brian, like, it just consistency-wise, even Hadwin, he's been more consistent, put up a few more top finishes. So maybe not quite as bad underpriced as An, but close.
Do you have to play 2-time defending champion Jonathan Vegas at $7,500?
Look, if you want to go there and be like, yeah, I got to play this guy now. He's hit twice in 2 years. Go ahead. I'm not doing it. I know he missed 5 cuts and came here and won last year, and I know his form coming in even in 2016 was terrible. But I'm just not going back there. I mean, how many times can lightning strike with this guy? You've got to have some form of predictability. We use recent form. I mean, we're believers in it. I think you are a little bit too. I'm not going to roster a guy just because he did well 2 years in a row at a course. I'm just not going to do it. If he had a little bit of recent form coming in, I'd probably have a different story, but I'm not doing it. I mean, there's just too many other good players in better form right now at this price range. I'm not. I have no interest in Johnny Vegas this week. If he wins again or he top fives again, fine. But I'm not doing it.
What about some of the other bombers in the top end of the 7K range? You got like you like the love market, like Patrick Rogers is up there. Kevin Tway is a part of that category as well. Even some of the shorter guys like Putnam and Danny Lee have cranked out a few top end finishes, but the consistency hasn't been there with any of them. I'm probably full fade on all 4 of those guys, and I'll even throw Ollie into the mix, who's never missed a cut at Glen Abbey.
I have some interest in Patrick Rogers this week. I do feel like he was headed for a little bit of a breakout after the U.S. Open. Then it didn't happen. He took last week off, obviously. It could be more of like a reset thing, and he just needed a little bit of a break because he was playing really well there for a couple tournaments, and he did go through. He's going through a bit of a swing change. So if that does take effect and he comes back with a little bit more confidence, because his putter is there, he's the type of player who could definitely take advantage of these par fives too. You just don't really know what you're going to get with him if he's going to have a consistent week off the tee or not. And it's kind of been that way his whole career. So at the same time, the upside is there at 7,900, in my opinion. I mean, if you're asking me who has more upside, Rogers, love market, it's probably Rogers. So you're just taking way more of a risk that he's either going to miss the cut or be like T50. So.
All right, so below 7,500, I'm in on Joel Dahman, I'm in on JJ Spawn, and I'm in on Keith Mitchell. I'm locking those 3 guys in. But Ryan Armour is one that I'm giving some consideration to. The opposite of the player that we've been talking about. Not big on driving distance, but scores incredibly well on these shorter par 4s from 400 to 450 yards, as does Abraham Answer. Do you have any ideas about those two? Do they sniff any of your lineups?
Probably not, just because there's 2 or 3 players I just like that are cheaper than them. I don't think we have either of them ranked super high this week, although I could be wrong about that. Let me check. No. So either of those guys for me, I've been like full fade on Armour even through this good stretch. So maybe I'm not the guy to ask on him. He is a pretty solid player when he putts well. So, but at the same time, like I said, I do like Keith Mitchell this week. I'd rather go down to him. I'm definitely in on him. Joel Dahman's interesting because he's put up a nice little run. You wonder if it's like hit the wall time with him. We've been really big on him. At the same time, I think he dropped a little bit in our rankings this week. So it's just something to keep an eye on. If he's kind of headed towards, maybe one of his patented like miscuts now that everyone's gonna roster him. I'm okay getting off him here because again, I do like Keith Mitchell a little bit better just because he's got the length off the tee. He's a really good par 5 scorer. And then going down, there's just plays that I feel just as comfortable with who are cheaper. So.
Yeah, so I mean, HV3, Harold Varner, one of my favorite plays from down here as well. He's $7,100. If you wanted to pivot off some of those chalkier guys, because Mitchell will be chalk, Joel Dahman will be chalk. I'm not quite sure about Spawn. I just happen to like Spawn. But I think that Nick Watney is a really nice fit at this course. He's made the cut all 3 times here. He has the driving distance. He has the profile of the player we want. Ryan Palmer is the other one, but I just can't go down that road. But Nick Watney makes a lot of sense to me.
Watney is interesting. I mean, he was trending for us for a while. He's dropped off a bit, but you're right. He does kind of fit the profile here. I mean, he's a good par 5 scorer. He's been making a ton of cuts, which I always like, even if a player is not putting up like big finishes. I think it's usually a good sign. So I'm with you there. Obviously, more of like a GPP, like Sergio play, where you just sprinkle in a little bit and you'll be way overweight. But yeah, I mean, HV3 is ranked very high for us. I would say that the player one of the players I like the most in this range is Sam Ryder, though, 7,100. He's ranked just outside first class on Fantasy Golf Metrics, but recent form is there. Birdie or better percentage over the last 12 weeks is really high. I mean, at 7,100, I just feel like, again, he's cheaper than all those other players we mentioned. His form, the stats say it's a go for. So I'm in on Sam Ryder at that price. I think he's a really good target this week.
Sam Ryder at 7,100. Do you think he'll be popular or not?
I think he'll garner a little bit of ownership, but again, I feel like, HV3 is there. People are just going to pay up for guys like Mitchell or Dahman. So I don't think Sam Ryder can get that popular because I don't think enough people know who he is.
Okay, probably no interest in Troy Merritt coming off of a win at the Barbasol. Not a great course fit here, but you can continue riding the good vibes of a win and come in with hot form. He does have pretty good form, but Corey Connors is there, the Canadian. Like I said, he is the one Canadian who sort of fits the exact profile that you want. An excellent ball striker, has the distance, guy cannot putt to save his life, but kind of a running theme of every Canadian who's not Adam Hadwin. Just absolutely cannot putt. I don't know what's wrong with us. Is this like a thing? Like, did you get like golf lessons growing up or anything? Did they just avoid putting?
I guess so. Maybe it's just like the winter or the greens here just suck all the time. So when we get on real greens, we can't putt. It's a possibility. I mean, Mike Weir was a kind of a good putter for a period of time. I mean, now he can't do anything, but I don't know. Yeah, Connors is probably, again, if you want to play the Canadian bump in the narrative, and we've seen Canadians, bump up the leaderboard here. I don't mind it, I guess. I mean, you have Stuart Sink there at 7,100, who's ranked. We have him ranked pretty high. I mean, obviously, I know you were high on him last week. Really did nothing wrong. He really paid off his salary last week if you went with him. So I'd actually feel good about Sink in a cash game. And then for GPPs, I'd probably just go with a Ryder or maybe a Connors down here, or go down to Cameron Champ, depending on how his ownership projections look later in the week.
I actually, besides Harold Varner at 7,100, I like Bronson Burgoon as well. I think those two are sort of in a class, skill-wise at least, and form-wise. Like, you like Ryder. I think Burgoon's better than Ryder. I mean, their form might be very similar coming in, but Burgoon just did go over and play in Scotland. Now he's coming back over, so you can probably hold that against him. I won't hold it against him, but I'll use Bronson Burgoon as well.
Yeah, I mean, Burgoon fourth in par 5 scoring for us, I think, over the last 12 weeks, or he's very high if it's not fourth. It's something like that. So, I agree. I don't know about, who's better between him and Ryder. It's close. They're both, trending pretty similarly for us right now, too. I just like Ryder a little bit more. You obviously like Burgoon a little bit more. But I think both are good. Again, this comes down to what we talked about off the start. There's this whole range is chock full of guys that are either coming in good form, talented, they're training in the right directions, they look good in the right stats. So you can play 2 or 3 of these guys, in my opinion. You can really go like major stars and scrubs if you want to start off with Dustin, and I think you'll be okay this week personally.
Anyone else in the $7,000 area you think we should bring up?
I think that's about it. We mentioned a lot of players. No, that's about it for me from this range. I mean, Burgoon was kind of last player. Connors, Stallings, I don't know.
I saw some buzz for Harkins earlier. I'm not really buying that.
Yeah. Again, like Harkins is a nice player, but again, when you have Burgoon, Ryder, and a couple, even JT Poston, I think I'd take over Harkins at this point. Harkins is nice, but I feel like he's actually a little bit overpriced considering some of the names he's around this week.
Well, I mean, if you're going to play like the Johnny Vegas narrative and see how everything kind of trends for him, like James Hahn has had an incredible amount of success at this course over the years. 10th, 11th, 43rd, 40th. And he's only $7,000. No one's going to play him because the form is just off. If you're, like we talked about at the beginning, can you consolidate a core down in the 7,000 area, just roll with them, and then sprinkle it about up top? I think James Hahn and Nick Watney are the two guys that you can work in that are going to garner like no ownership that can really help set your team apart. And you don't need to have much of them either.
Absolutely. I mean, well, obviously we're talking this range, some strong players, but these are still like, first-year players capable of missing a cut, and a guy like James Hahn has had some course experience. He's capable of putting. We know James Hahn is capable of winning off of like 5 missed cuts, so there's no reason why he can't do it. And again, 20 laps, one James Hahn, you're going to be overweight. So, absolutely.
6K range. Who you got? Love Lady.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some pretty. Sorry, who are you going to say?
I was going to say Love Lady. Is he just the play?
Yeah, I think he's there. I have some interest in Hunter Mahan, too. I mean, he was leading this event in 2013 at this venue before he pulled out because he had to go see his kid get born. Good Father of the Year award, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, he played really well last week. He's made like 3 or 4 cuts. I don't mind Mahan there either. Lovelady definitely, I think, from a par 5 scoring distance off the tee makes a lot of sense too, though.
Yeah, 3 straight weeks for Hunter Mahan in the positives in terms of off the tee and approach. The ball striking is back. I guess the other guy for me down here, I think that Jason Kokrak rates out really well. And my main man, Lonto smacks it out there. He's only $6,700.
We have Lonto in the first class this week.
He should be, man. The guy's good.
Yeah, no, we had him ranked. I think he was like first for the Barbasol, the stats we put out, and he's still ranked highly. I mean, he had a solid week there. So absolutely, no. I mean, he's one of our top players in this range. But I definitely actually like ahead of Lovelady. So hey, stay on it. While he's making cuts, he can putt a little bit. The guy's talented. So I definitely not saying get off him here. I think he's actually probably my favorite play under 7K this week.
Do you end up doing the Chad Campbell plays well at this course? Because no one believed it for John Deere, and then all of a sudden you look on Sunday, hey, there's Chad Campbell again. Great. Do you buy the course history with him, although he is just not a fit at this course whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean he's at a fit, I guess, from a point where he's a strong iron player and he does well with these smaller greens, but distance off the tee, no, he's not even that accurate off the tee half the time. So I just feel like, again, this is a little bit deeper field than we usually see at the Canadian Open. You have these younger players like Lovelady and Griffin. I just rather go there. I think I just feel like the upside's a little bit better. At the same time, I mean, we're a little bit thinner under 6K, under 7K. So I wouldn't write him off. He's still be in my like top 10 for players under 7K, I think, this week, but maybe just not in like the top 5.
What about Big Norm? Big Norm coming in at $6,300.
I'm going Svensson over Norm, man. I mean, I got to go side with the Canadian. Again, Svensson's won on the web.com too. I think long term, Norm Zhang probably a better player, but Svensson is no slouch either. He's no scrub. He's already got a win this year. He's going to be on the PGA. So I'll take that's where I'm going to go with the Canadian narrative. I'm going to go with the Canadian narrative. I'm going down below. I'm going to take Svensson. I'll say this before we wrap or whatever. I mean, Wheatcroft 6,500. It's trending pretty well for us too. So.
I remember he challenged. Was it the Vegas year?
The first Vegas year. He's in the final group.
Yeah, and he sculled the chip out of the bunker.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I got on Johnny Vegas in play on the final round that year, so I was quite happy to see him implode. But he's in the final group, had a chance, and then he bunkered it into the water. That was awesome.
Yeah, we need to find the one Canadian who's definitely going to be like at the top of the leaderboard. So when we tune into like Canadian sports, they're like, "Oh my God, this guy's a lock to win."
Yeah, it'll be someone we haven't even mentioned. It'll be Austin Connolly.
I mean, skill-wise, Austin Connolly could make some sense. Like he just plays in Europe, so no one really knows what he's all about. But what about like Hearn? Hearn's had good showings here before. He's playing a lot better.
I feel like Hearn's a guy who's just he's going to get too pumped up for this and maybe just have a bad week. But I could be wrong. He's playing actually really well right now. So Hearn's another guy actually you should probably keep on your radar a little bit. And it just comes down to, I mean, how much. How you have these guys ranked under 7K, obviously. But if you want to give a little bit of bump to Hearn, I understand. I'd probably go Mahan over him personally. But
Sean Stephanie is, over the past 36 rounds, I have ranked 10th in par 5 scoring gained against the field. Does that interest you at all, Sean Stephanie?
I mean, I mentioned Wheatcroft. I guess it just really depends. I don't want to go too far into this range. I mean, we've mentioned quite a few other players. So I would say no, but at the same time, I mean, the ball striking for him when it gets going, he can be a decent player at times. So I'm not really interested, but I guess when you look at like who's around him, it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I think I'd just rather play Big Norm at that point than Stephanie. He did make the cut at the Barbasol, but before that, I think he's lost strokes on approach in 4 consecutive tournaments. He's still gaining off the tee like he does. Like you mentioned, like if he can get the ball striking going, he can be quite good. But I'm thinking, first round leader bet, probably the max on that one.
Yeah, I like that actually for Stefani, yeah.
All right. I think it's Stephanie, not Stefani. He's not like related. He's not related.
Stephanie. I always call him Stefani.
He's not related to Gwen. I'm sorry to tell you.
I know. I'm the worst with names, as people probably figured out by now.
Tell me more about this Svensson guy, because I actually legit know nothing about him. Like, what sort of player is he?
No, he's more of a ball striker for sure. I mean, he's got a little bit of distance off the tee, but he's from what I've seen on the web.com, he's a really good ball striker who, when his putter gets hot, he can go out there. I mean, I think he won his tournament. It was, all the web.com tournaments are low scoring, or most of them are, but he won in the early in the season at the Bahamas on like a course where there were some easier par 5s. So I think this is actually a pretty good setup for him too. But again, you have a player who's been trending well for 2 years on the web.com, is going to be on the PGA next year. he's talented. I mean, you could definitely see him as one of the top Canadians on tour in a couple of years. So I mean, I know it's Canadian. We're joking around a bit, but I actually do think he's legitimately in play this week because he's so cheap.
All right, give me a number on Cameron Champ where you will fade him in terms of ownership. Let's say he gets to 13%.
Yeah, that would be about the 13 or 15. I was going to go 15. If he even starts to approach like projections of 13 to 15%, I probably start to think about fading him. 10% I'm okay with. But yeah, I don't want to pump the brakes too much because this guy is a player and he's been so good. But there comes a point when the field is this deep and the ownership is so high that you got to take a stance. So
well,
13 to 15.
Ownership is going to be really tough this week until we get in later. Like, we're not going to have a good gauge of what's going on right now, only because odds were released so late. The DraftKings pricing came out so late that a lot of people haven't built lineups or they're but early skewing towards like where people are gravitating in their lineups. Finau is probably going to be the highest owned guy. Then I got DJ Neiman, Harold Varner, Joel Dahman, Charlie Hoffman, Burgoon, Mitchell, Chris Kirk, your buddy, Sam Ryder. Has been up there too. These are all names that are flashing on Fantasy National that people are using right now. That's where they're going with their lineup. So I think you're seeing a lot of stars and scrubs, probably a lot of DJ Finau or Finau Neiman or Bubba Neiman Finau, then straight down to that Ryder, Burgoon, Dahman, Harold Varner range. That if you're looking for like what's going to be the popular build, I feel like that's going to be it.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about it on the pod, Fantasy Golf Metrics pod last night, and it's kind of the same thing. We were going through like ideas for lineups build, and it just Hoffman is the other guy I might throw in there, but we throw in a couple of those names you mentioned, and then we go down the 7K range, and Ryder, Varner, maybe even Keith Mitchell might even get a little bit more love than people think, but that whole range is those players for sure.
Right now, Sergio 4.1% projection.
I would actually even be. I think he might even be under that. To be honest, I think he's gonna be like 2%.
That's crazy. You have to play him then. You have to, at least in a lineup.
You may have talked me into Sergio, which is just the worst thing because I just don't know if I can take another Sergio week. But
listen, if it's a bad Sergio week, what do you have? 1 or 2 Sergio lineups? Big deal. You try to make great lineups every single week. It doesn't work. So why not use the guy who you think is going to be bad?
No, it's true. I mean, it's such low ownership. It's going to be interesting to see where we haven't projected for that later in the week. But I really do under 5%. I'd be shocked if he cracks 5% personally.
Yeah, and the other single digits that I'm looking at right now in that like 9K plus range, like Sergio, no one's going to own Jimmy Walker, no one's going to own Poulter, and no one's going to own Kisner. Kisner could be sneaky. He's coming off a good week finally.
Yeah, Kisner, I agree. He could be a little bit sneaky. Yeah, he's the type of guy, once the putter gets going, he tends to just, roll it out for a couple tournaments. So, again, we've seen Snedeker, Kuchar do well here. There's no reason why he can't compete at this course. It's a short venue, and I know the Bombers have an advantage, but Kisner can compete because he's so good around the greens.
Yeah, and he's been gaining strokes off the tee. Like you mentioned, you don't necessarily have to be a bomber. The shorter hitters, if they can get to their preferred iron range off the tee and get the right angles, it's, of course, all about angles, that Kevin Kisner is someone that can do that. And it's really hard to tell, like, because the Open's so weird that sometimes guys lay up because it's an easier chip than going at the pin, and it just becomes a strategy type thing. But was it the putter that was carrying? I know it was for round 1 for sure, because he couldn't miss anything out. Anything inside 45 feet, Kevin Kisner made day 1, but it's not like he played poorly the rest of the rounds. Like, I assume that at least his wedges were fired up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I agree. It especially around the greens. It wasn't just. That's why I said, his chipping. I mean, he almost chipped in a couple times on Sunday too. So. He obviously wasn't being like Ricky and hitting it out of bounds off the tee or anything like that either. So if the ball striking with Kisner comes back even a little bit, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's a player who could put up a couple top 10s in the next month or so here.
Ricky Fowler is a 10-time major champion. That's what the internet tells me.
Ricky Fowler can just leave. I'm so sick of Ricky in majors right now. I'm just so sick of it.
It could be worse. You could have taken Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, true.
All right.
At least Ricky made the cut.
That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience Canadian Open DraftKings picks and preview. You can find my entire cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com. Jeff, where can everyone find your work? And tell us a little bit about Fantasy Golf Metrics.
Yeah, for sure. So you can check it out on DK Live. Obviously, download the app if you haven't done that. And fantasygolfmetrics.com. Lots of great tools there, obviously. But weekly articles from me, you can always go up there and read if you're bored. And put out a podcast every week, too. So check that out on Twitter at FG Metrics, but very affordable subscriber rates if you want to check us out.
And at The Fantasy Grind, or The Fantasy Grind, if you say like the
The
could have two E's.
Fantasy Grind.
The
Yeah.
Fantasy Grind on Twitter. That's Geoff Ulrich. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at the PME. You can do the same thing on Instagram. Plus, you can also wait for the cheat sheet if you are a follower or a member of the Pat Mayo Facebook group, facebook.com/thepme. Wednesday afternoon, my cheat sheet will go up there. Not playing a huge card this week, but probably just the bets that I mentioned up at the top, plus a few first-round leaders may stay away from the top 20s this week. We'll see, unless I jump on the Svensson guy like Geoff did. So you can do all of that, plus become a member at fantasynational.com today. Get the monthly membership. Only $25 carries you all the way through to the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So you got plenty of time to ramp up for the PGA Championship. And I heard there's going to be $1 million up for grabs in the DraftKings Millionaire Maker, so you may want to check that out. Get used to the tools right now. Everyone, just go read the reviews for it. Everyone loves fantasynational.com, so you better sign up soon, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!